Good morning, everyone. Tyler White with Hands on Health Chiropractic in Brick, New Jersey. As always, I'm very excited to be speaking with you, and we hope that you and your loved ones are keeping safe and staying well. So our discussion this week is going to center around stress. And if you've been following our channel or coming into the office or seeing our material for any length of time, you probably know that we talk about stress a lot. Personally, I think it's unique to all of us. I think it's one of the primary forces that acts upon us. I find stress to be consistent and persistent, and personally, the reason I and my family get adjusted regularly is to enhance our adaptability to stress. So whatever life throws at us, we have the ability to perceive it and respond to it as effectively as possible. So the cliff notes for this week's discussion go: be adaptable, we are always in transition, and if we can find a way to relax, things will inevitably change, right? Sounds simple, but simple and easy are usually not the same things, are they? So because our mind always seeks to control and anticipate and plan, we frequently become angry, annoyed, and seek comfort when things don't go according to plan, or when our sort of value system or belief system gets rocked. And if we could even fathom a few weeks ago that life would throw a more significant, bigger, huger stress in front of us before the end of this year, here it is. And from the interactions I've had with individuals in the office and the conversations I've had in my life, it seems that much like the last 3 months of our life, our current state of stress and being has affected people in many different ways. And for some of us, it's rocked some long-held beliefs. For some of us, it's challenged some things within ourselves. For some of us, it's shown a different light on maybe some of the people around us in our life. And that's really not always an easy thing either. So as we said, stress is multidimensional, and I would just like to start by pointing out some of the really upfront ones that we've seen in the last week. So, of course, there is the emotional, mental, and just sort of stress to our being, given the state and tension of life in America right now. And if COVID wasn't enough, and if the divisiveness there wasn't enough, somehow it's worse. And whether we look at individuals as demonstrators or rioters or looters or protesters or freedom fighters or however we see them, the rift between us in regards to humanity only seems to be widening. And as I mentioned, for some of us it's brought up some very deep stuff, but one of the most positive things that I've heard over the last week, and I always like to share something positive, is that intolerance and injustice and racism, especially in America, is a spectrum. And we all have the ability to fall somewhere in it, right? We all have bias, and we all are raised with limited experience, and we always have the ability to change as our consciousness expands. And I think consciousness is always expanding. So it's really easy to look down the ladder, right? To stand where we're at in the spectrum and look down the ladder and say, well, I wouldn't say that, or I wouldn't do that. But I think now more than ever, we have an opportunity to look up the ladder and say, how can I be better, and what more can I do to hold myself to a higher standard and conduct myself in the manner that I would like to. So, nevertheless, part of this emotional turmoil has us glued to our phone more than ever, right? Here we are looking down at the thing. So that adds a very real mechanical stress to our spine, which we have to talk about as chiropractors, right? So our head is roughly between 18 and 20 pounds on average. It is a big old bowling ball sitting up there. So at neutral, 18 to 20 pounds. With 40 degrees of flexion, roughly 40 pounds. With 60 degrees of flexion, when we look down at this thing here, our head weighs about 60 pounds, right? So think of holding a bowling ball up high versus holding it out front. Gravity pulls it down, and it gets a lot heavier. So our reliance on technology for information, and whether our technology calms us or gets us fired up or helps us validate our ideas, whatever that may be doing right now, does create a very real mechanical stress on our spine that has a very real effect on our life off of our phones. So I'm going to ask you to be mindful for that. And it's going to lead us into our next two prevalent stresses of the day. We have to talk about mask wearing. It's a big topic. I think there's some emergent data that we have to discuss, and we're going to do that in a minute. If you look below this video in the email that it's coming in, you're going to see an abstract from a New England Journal of Medicine article from last week. We're going to talk about it in a second. But for our first foyer into mask stress, it does cause our body to work a little bit differently, right? And it does affect our respiration rate. I pushed a cart full of fence around the side of Lowe's this weekend with a mask on. It was brutal. So while masks may help keep us safe, they do affect our capacity for respiration. So I think there is a time and a place to wear them responsibly, which we're going to get into in just a minute. The other prevalent stress is biological stress, right? And I think the other thing we're going to talk about in a moment is just what sort of effect our reliance on sanitizer and sanitation is having on our human virome. And in the same way that we have a human genome, right, all the genes in our body, we have a human biome, which is all of the things living on and in us, the bacteria, the viruses, and other things. So that has to be discussed too, and we're going to get into it in just a minute. And I don't want anyone to think I'm telling them not to wear a mask. That's obviously not the case. But as I said, I think we can do it responsibly and do it smartly based on the data we're seeing. So when we're done here, if you scroll down and you click on the image on the left from the New England Journal of Medicine, it came out, I believe, May 21st, about 2 weeks ago. And, one of the big take-homes, so it was a study done in hospitals regarding healthcare workers wearing masks, interacting with COVID patients and positive patients, and trying to evaluate what sort of protection masks offered healthcare workers in one of the most dangerous environments possible right now. And one of their take-homes was that wearing masks outside of healthcare facilities offer little, if any, protection from infection. Public health authorities define significant exposures as face-to-face contact within 6 feet of a symptomatic COVID-19 patient that is sustained for at least a few minutes. Some say more than 10 minutes, some say even more than 30. So the other image I included shows some relative size, right? So it shows the size of a human hair, the size of a mask filtration, the size of a virus, and then the size of a KN95 healthcare mask filtration system. So I think it speaks to the relative size of our filtration. And I think one of the things, another thing this article pointed out was that for many of us, when we wear masks, we're more likely to touch and fix and try to manipulate them. So we may increase the likelihood that we bring germs or pathogens to our face. And even though masks may reduce the likelihood of droplets landing in our mouth, they do little to protect the mucous membranes of our eyes and face and our ears. So we can bring stuff there. And one of the things this article also pointed out was that while masks do reduce the likelihood that a healthcare worker who may be moderately sick will infect patients, they were found to do little to affect the way that a pre-symptomatic individual may transmit a virus to non-symptomatic individuals in casual encounters. So they do provide a caution, right? They remind us that something is still out there. They remind us that we should be cautious and that we should wash our hands before we get in the car or do it, whatever we do. But the article also suggests that the other things are just as important, right? I believe it states that even for healthcare workers, masks alone provide very little protection unless they are washing their hands, wearing gowns, sanitizing, and doing all of the other things that go with a well-rounded protocol for health, right? Just like if we want to be healthy, we can't just drink water and exercise, but we have to eat good food and we have to get rest and we should probably get adjusted and do all the things that make that well-rounded health protocol. So our other article of the day, if we click on the picture of the virus, the mask, the human hair, the image on the right, that's right below this video, it'll take us to a 2018 article about the human virome. And if you grew up around my time, we probably remember a film called Biodome. So anything with an ohm is about life and the organisms that live within that environment to facilitate life. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the human genome, which is the characterization of all the genes in the body. We have a human biome, which is all the bacteria in the body, but we also have a virome. And it's very easy, especially now, to demonize viruses as something bad that we don't want. But the reality is we have 38 trillion bacteria in and around us, and we have 10 times that many viruses around us. So a lot of the viruses in our system, much like the bacteria, work to maintain a functional environment to keep us healthy. So many of our viruses destroy bacteria. Many of our viruses keep other things in check within us. And like anything else, health is not necessarily about being completely clean and sterile in this instance, but it's about maintaining a balance and an environment that facilitates the right type of growth at the right time in the right way. So, in closing, I'm just going to remind you that my regular chiropractic care personally is about overcoming the effects of stress. And I maintain that whether we choose to expand our consciousness, to enhance our athletic ability, or to enhance our resilience and recovery from illness or injury, we can benefit from regular chiropractic care. So when you're ready, we're here for you. Until then, be safe, stay well, enjoy the season, and we look forward to seeing you soon.